Support everything we do at MWP News by visiting co-fi.com/MWP News. Every donation helps us stay independent. For breaking entertainment news, reviews, and more, check out MWPnews.com. If you love games, head over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/at MWP News Gaming for reviews and gameplay. Links for all of this will be in the show notes, as well as links to the other podcasts. Thank you for your continued support. Good morning and welcome to 30-Minute Reviews. I am Adam. We have two things to talk about today. We're going to talk about Fantastic Four, the 2005 first theatrical Fantastic Four movie, in the lead up to First Steps coming in just 2 weeks. But before we do that, I want to talk about something that I've been seeing more and more of, and it's a recurring topic that we've seen over the course of the last few years. We've talked at length about the kind of right-wing hit machine. It's the social media slash YouTube slash quote-unquote journalist machine that has kind of been refined and purified over the years. It's kind of the Death Star of entertainment media. And what I mean by that is, it is something that has been so finely tuned, it can functionally destroy something before it comes out. Or probably the better thing is not Death Star, it's probably Project Insight, which is probably the better way to do it. For those of you who don't remember The Winter Soldier, Project Insight was this thing S.H.I.E.L.D. was making. It was going to be three triangulated helicarriers that would be up in the air at all times with weapons pointed down at Earth, and it would use an algorithm created by Zola to identify potential threats to S.H.I.E.L.D. and neutralize them before they even were able to do that. So, like, they're talking about it on, what's his name says, like, Stephen Strange would have been on it. When we see in the third act, like, Tony Stark is on it. These are people who would have been threats to S.H.I.E.L.D. and their power. And what we've seen is that if something draws the ire of this machine that exists on YouTube and social media and all these other places, if something draws the ire of it, it will focus its attention on it to begin with. And it will use it to generate conversation. We've seen it with, the Marvels. We've seen it with Captain America Brave New World. We've seen it with, there are a few other movies that were quote-unquote woke that this thing turned its attention to, and then they'll use things that are kind of subtle. Kind of like, and to use another pop culture analogy, the Doctor at right after David Tennant regenerates, and he becomes David Tennant in the Christmas special coming out of the death of Nine. He gets rid of the Prime Minister by just sowing a little bit of doubt. Don't you think she looks a little tired? And it's that kind of thing that you'll see. Now, one of the things that they've realized over the years, we've seen this machine refine since 2014-ish, where it's like, it started out with like Annie, and then it kind of really hit its stride when it came to, Ghostbusters. And I think part of the reason why it wasn't turned on Mad Max Fury Road was, number one, it wasn't really marketed as a Furiosa movie. It was marketed as a Mad Max movie, so they had no way of knowing that this was going to be be something that would be able to have that attention turned on it. But also, it was before they had perfected the system. And I think that one of the things that we're seeing is the next evolution of this, where it used to just be they would go out, they would see there's a movie, it's got a not white lead, it's got a woman in the lead, it's got whatever in the lead, and it's something they thought that they had an ownership of, and they'll just say something ambiguous, something like, quote, production issues. And all that means is that, hey, wait a minute, something's going on behind the scenes, and it could potentially lead to issues on camera when the movie comes out. And that would be the issue. Like, you only ever see these complaints on movies that have not white leads or not white, creative teams behind it. It's never, you never see it on movies that actually do have trouble production. You see these reports on movies that don't actually do, but, they just want to put that little seed of doubt. That little seed of doubt that's going to make you go, huh, that's a little weird. And then when someone starts complaining about a movie or complaining about a show, it's in the back of your head. Oh yeah, there were production troubles on this. So then the next time they say there's production troubles on a movie, you're gonna be like, oh wait, there's production troubles on that. There were production troubles on this other movie. That movie turned out bad. Now there was always a nagging undercurrent to this. There was always something to this where the conversation was being steered by people who had not seen the movie, played the game, watched the TV show, whatever. That was always kind of just below the surface of this. There's people who hadn't seen it, who didn't understand it, taking advantage of people who aren't media literate and don't understand it in context. Like, let's take, for example, Age of Ultron. Age of Ultron had something similar, but in the other direction, with the outcry over, what's it called? The outcry over that one line about the Red Room from Black Widow, where she talks about how, when she was going through the process of the Red Room, they removed her all of her reproductive organs so she couldn't have kids. And she said to Bruce Banner, well, who's really the monster here? And that was interpreted by people at the time as like, is she saying she's a monster because she can't have kids? That's a weird thing to say. And it's like, well, no. In the broader context of the scene, that's not what she's saying. In the broader context of the scene, what she's saying is, I consented to mutilate my body with the intent to kill people. Like, that was the only reason that this happened. Who's really the monster? It's like, I was willing to go to that great length to be able to kill people systemically for this organization. And that's something that, is there. Um, and that's always kind of been kind of an undercurrent. And now we're starting to see it evolve. With the advent of AI, we're seeing this get more and more prevalent with more and more, how do we say this? More apparently physical evidence to back it up. So, like, let's say, for example, recently Ironheart just came out. And I watched Ironheart. I thought it was fine. I mean, there was room for improvement. Ironheart's definitely not a perfect show. It should have been longer. I would have liked some more development on some characters and all of that. But I was talking to someone at work, and he said to me, yeah, I couldn't watch it. She badmouthed Tony Stark, and I guess you can't badmouth Tony Stark. I'm not going to do that. And I'm like, I watched all 6 episodes. I do not recall her badmouthing Tony Stark. Um, And the only thing I could think of that was kind of like that was her and Natalie talking about what her aspirations were. And it's like, I'm going to be bigger than Steve Jobs. I'm going to be bigger than Elon Musk. I don't think she used Elon Musk, but like, that kind of thing. I'm going to be bigger than all these other type people. I'm going to be bigger than Tony Stark. And I'm like, is that shitting on Tony Stark? I don't think it's shitting on Tony Stark. I think it's an aspirational comment by a teenager. Like, but to say that shitting on Tony Stark, it's like, so what? I mean, people say that all the time. It's like every sports star talks about, like, every up and coming basketball player wants to be better than LeBron. Every up and coming baseball player wants to be better than Babe Ruth, which is probably a dated reference, but whatever, it is what it is. Um, every up and coming hockey player wants to be the next Wayne Gretzky. Like, you pick the biggest, like, you set your sights on the biggest and the best. I'm gonna be better than them, and then even if you don't get better than them, you're still in the top, like, 1% of people of all time. Like, or I'm gonna be the next Tom Brady. Like, that's how that reads to me. I'm gonna be among these greats. You're gonna think of Riri Williams in the same way you think of these other people. I don't view that as dismissing Tony Stark. I view that way. And I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, and I said to him, like, well, I mean, at least, like, the way they did Mephisto in the last, I was like, oh, Mephisto was in it? And I'm like, you didn't watch the show, did you? Which tells me he got this from a podcaster or a YouTuber or someone in the manosphere who told him, hey, this is what's in the show. And then you blindly trust this person. Now, this is just the next evolution of this. That we knew this was coming. There was going to be a day where they're going to be like, look, we know these people are already eating out of the palm of our hand. These people who believe what we're saying are just, they're not fact checking it. We knew this day was going to come, where they were just going to make up what it is. Then came the Rachel Zegler narrative. So for context, Rachel Zegler has found herself at the center of a lot of controversy from a lot of people who categorically hate her. She has gotten a ton of hate for Snow White for saying things that I don't think are wrong about Snow White. Like, have you watched the movie Snow White at some point since you were a child? Because I have. I actually watched Snow White back in March because I wanted to get because I didn't remember the movie. Like, I remember there were dwarves, and I remember Snow White was in it, but I didn't remember anything about the movie. And then I watched it, and I was like, okay, this is a movie that is historically significant, but it's not. It doesn't age particularly well, not because it doesn't look good. It still looks fantastic. It's just the weird thing about it is Snow White's kind of a non-entity in the movie because she is an actress who's playing Snow White in real life, who I think also played Wendy in Peter Pan or Tinkerbell, if I'm not mistaken. She played someone in Peter Pan. But either way, an actress plays Snow White, and she's rotoscoped in. And what rotoscoping in, for those who don't know, is it's kind of a primitive form of motion capture, where what would happen is they would shoot, like they would have the actress act out the scene on camera. They would shoot her on camera, then they would take that, they would trace over her actions, and then they would animate her into the movie. It was a very primitive way of doing what we would now consider motion capture. Um, and she's rotoscoped in. And I think there are a few other characters who are also rotoscoped in, like the Evil Queen in her native form is rotoscoped into the movie, and the other one is Prince Charming is also that. The issue is the dwarves and the animals and the what's it called, and the Evil Queen when she turns into the little hag woman. They all are cartoon characters in their purest sense. They look like they're out of a Disney cartoon of the era or a Looney Tunes cartoon of the era. They move with cartoon logic. They exist within cartoon logic. Snow White doesn't. And to that end, she shows up. She gets kicked out for being too pretty. She goes to this house in the woods. She cleans up for the guys. She leaves, and then she immediately gets poisoned and is asleep for the rest of the movie. It's one of those things where it's like when Rachel Zegler says, like, yeah, we want to give her more of a role in the movie and give her more agency to do things, I'm like, yeah, right on, because she doesn't really do much in the movie. She's a non-entity in the movie, and I haven't seen the live-action Snow White, but whatever, it is what it is. I don't know how accurate that is to the live-action version, but regardless, okay, fine, you want to do an alternate take, and again, I've said it before, and I'll say it again, the most interesting live-action Disney remakes have been the ones that have taken the existing canon and done something slightly different with them. They're the ones that take what we know already, and expand on them in some way. Because like we talk about Cruella, we talk about Maleficent, we talk about all of these movies that have worked for them, and the ones that haven't have been the straight adaptations, The Lady and the Tramp, the Pinocchio, the Dumbo. Like those are the ones that have kind of not really worked as well, with the exception being Lilo and Stitch. And look, the difference between making money and the movie being good. There are plenty of movies that are not good that make a ton of money. It is what it is. So she's drawn all this ire. Plus, there was the whole thing where she supports people of Palestine, which has also led to some distance and made the press tour difficult. They sidelined her because of that. Um, During the press tour, and it was a whole thing. Variety did a hit piece blaming the multi-million dollar movie financial failure on the 23-year-old girl in the lead, which is incredibly fucked up. The fact that Variety ran that piece was one of the things that made me kind of stop reading Variety, because it's like you're clearly just doing the work of the studio. You're not doing actual journalism. You're just doing the work of the studio, who's trying to blame the failure not on the executive who made all these bad decisions, but on the girl with 5 screen credits. Like, it's just kind of bizarre. So, all of that said, you know, this has led to her becoming kind of a punching bag for these far right morons. And what this has evolved into is there is an entirely fabricated situation between her and Trey Parker and Matt Stone. So, for the record, South Park has not come back for its most recent season yet. They have not released anything new for South Park since Into the Pandaverse, which was a special on Paramount Plus, I believe. I didn't watch it. But it's the one where they make fun of Kathleen Kennedy. I know that because I heard about they put a chicken and make her gay. I haven't watched South Park in probably close to 10 years at this point. But I know for a fact that we have not had a new season of South Park or a new anything of South Park since that since this movie has come out. Definitively, since this movie has come out, we have not had anything new for South Park. And the point that we're making in this is, this fabricated thing evolved from the following. According to the fictitious timeline of events, South Park did an episode in which they mock Snow White. Specifically, they mock Rachel Zegler as Snow White. Rachel Zegler then saw this, again, complete fabrication. Not the episode of fabrication, the entire scenario is a fabrication. None of this actually happened. She saw this and had a mental breakdown. For frame of reference, she's actually on the West End in a very successful production of Evita with Andrew Lloyd Webber, because she's a theater actress. She had a public social media meltdown. She then immediately sued Trey Parker and Matt Stone for her portrayal on there for several $1 million. They then told her to fuck off, and the lawsuit was dismissed. And she is still having this mental breakdown. Again, none of this happened. None of this is real. There is no evidence that anything involved in this timeline of events actually happened. This is all complete fabrication. Yet, multiple people on YouTube and various social media sites have run with this completely fabricated, fictitious narrative as if it's true. And all it serves to do is make people look bad. Now, you're probably wondering, why doesn't she sue? Because that's the thing, is that it's like, at this point, if you're completely making something up and it never actually happened, why don't you sue? And it's like, because at that point, number one, you're playing into their hands. Number two, why? Who cares? It's nonsense. Now, why should she care? Who cares? It's nonsense. That's one thing. Why should we care? Why should we care about this? Because these allegations of this timeline of events, the YouTube videos about them, tend to include AI-generated imagery to lend credibility. So, like, Snow White, the character, did appear at some point in South Park. I would assume probably Imagination Land, if I were to venture a guess. Or somewhere else she appeared, and there is a model of Disney Snow White in South Park style. If not, it's not hard to get an AI image generator to generate Disney Snow White in South Park style. Or even just to do it yourself. It's not like it's a complex art style to emulate. Whatever, however they got that, that's included. They do use AI imagery in some capacity to create fake images of her crying, fake images of her screaming and stuff like that, things that aren't actually real. Or, and to that end, this is the next phase of this. The next phase of this system will be the following. Be it next year, be it the year after. There will be a movie coming out that they will attract their ire. Maybe Dune Part 3 has Zendaya as a lead. What's going to end up happening is there's going to be an AI-generated video, in this case of Timothée Chalamet, ranting about how he's being sidelined in favor of her. Or there's going to be an AI-generated video of a director talking about how the movie they were making, the studio decided to go in a different direction. I didn't want to cast this person. I wanted to cast this person, but the studio told me I had to cast whoever. That's going to be the next step of this nonsense, and we need to be ready for that. If we're not ready for that, then we need to, we're going to have a bigger problem here. Media literacy is already at an all-time low. And then when we add in what generative AI can do to make something look legitimate when it's not, that's going to be an even bigger problem that we are genuinely not prepared for. And I know what you're thinking if you've made it this far because you want to hear my thoughts on Fantastic Four. I know what you're thinking. It's just entertainment. It's just movies. It's just, TV. It's just video games. It's just whatever. Ask yourself this. These are multi-billion-dollar companies that employ hundreds, if not thousands of people. Every production employs hundreds, if not thousands of people. And the idea that we're going to have these things get co-opted by people who don't care, don't want it to exist, all it's going to do is put harm on people, the crew members, the actors, the creative teams behind it. All these people are going to get harmed by it. And what's going to end up happening is it's going to lead to a scenario where we're going to have less transparency. And then what's going to happen too is that if this can work for this, because let's keep in mind, the only reason we are where we are right now is because of how poorly we all collectively, and I'm not saying just the people who hated on Ghostbusters 2016 for it being Ghostbusters 2016. I'm saying the entirety of that mechanism and the entirety of the mechanism of Gamergate is something that was weaponized and successfully used by Steve Bannon in 2016 to put Trump in office the first time. We are only in this scenario right now because of our inability to proactively react to these impending scenarios. Because if these things can work on social media to sway opinion in pop culture spaces, it will also work to sway opinion in politics. We're already seeing kind of the death of facts and the fact that reality doesn't exist, reality doesn't matter. What does matter is how your perception of reality is created based on those in power telling you reality is. And if that's where we are, and we're going to be in a situation where this is where it's going to be, this is a serious problem that we need to kind of get out in front of now and kind of figure out a solution to now. But this is something we need to keep an eye on. But you're probably here for the Fantastic Four review. And let's talk about Fantastic Four, the 2005 movie. I've talked about it before on this show. This movie is one where if it came out now as part of the MCU with updated graphics and updated CGI and stuff that doesn't inherently set it in the 90s or in the 2000s, like the licensed soundtrack, which I love because I love that era and that style of music. But for those of us, who aren't that, like, this movie, if it came out today, updated, it would be well received. And I think that this movie is not that bad. There are things in it that I think are a little bit iffy, like definitely the whole thing with Ben and his girlfriend is one of those things that I'm like, oh, that's not a great message to send to people. Where it's like, okay, great, he's horribly disfigured in this accident, and he talks to his wife. His wife is really excited to hear from him. She comes downstairs. She sees he's made out of rock. She leaves him immediately. But don't worry, he finds someone who will love him again. The only thing is she's blind, so she doesn't have to look at his hideous figure. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, can we think about this a little bit more? It's a little bit of a weird message to be sending to kids. I love Johnny in this movie. Chris Evans does a great job of playing Johnny as this arrogant prick of a guy. It's just he's just perfect in it. I don't hate Jessica Alba in this movie. I feel like the issues with Jessica Alba come more again to the script issues. I love this iteration of Reed so far. I think this is my favorite iteration of Reed, including John Krasinski and definitely including Miles Teller, because he has that know-it-allness to him. and it's like he is the smartest man in the universe. He knows he's the smartest man in the universe, but he's not gonna lord it over everyone. Um, and I think too, it's like consider the era this came out in. It really casts the X-Men movies in this weird situation where they're the odd men out in terms of not being willing to fully commit to going with a comic accurate look. Where it's like, yeah, the flight suits that they put the four on, like they look somewhat they look closer to the comics than anything in any of the X-Men movies. Um, like the idea that like you know it's darker blue, but like when they get Doom and and Doom is my favorite thing in this movie. Um, Unfortunately, the actor just died. Julian, I forgot his last name, but he unfortunately just passed away. He is fantastic in this movie. He nails the exact take of Doom that I love, which is he is someone who is, he is so self-centered and so vain that the thing that drives him nuts is the scar, the little scar that he has, and it's just yeah, his body's deteriorating and he's turning into metal and all that. It's all great. I guess I like everything about this character is great. I would have liked for him to be a little bit more developed. The movie's only like 2 hours and 9 minutes long, so you probably could have added a little bit there and had it flesh out a little bit better. Um, but by the time we get to the end, it's like, why is he wearing a hood and a cape? Who cares? He's in a comic accurate Doom costume. This is just fantastic. Everything about this movie, I think, works very well for me in a way that I wasn't expecting it to. Rewatching it now, I rewatched it again, I think like 6 years ago at this point, but I'm rewatching it now again. This movie just clicks so well, and everything about it works as well as it does. I'm surprised. Like I'm genuinely surprised that everything about it kind of works as well as it does. Looking back on it, with especially in the grand scheme of things that are going on in other movies. And I don't understand why this movie gets as much hate as it does either. It's just it's solid. I think again, I think it just people don't like Jessica Alba, and I'm not entirely sure why. It's just I think she was a model at the time more than an actress, and it's like, look, she's fine in the movie, but I don't think she was given a ton to do to begin with. Um, but yeah, if you haven't watched it, I would definitely recommend giving it another chance, especially this far removed from the original release. It is definitely worth a rewatch. Next week we'll be back with what's it called? With we'll be talking about Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, which I feel like I'll be a little bit less positive on. But we'll see. We will also next week be talking about Superman. I was going to do a little bit about it this week, but I went long on the other thing, and I didn't want to go long on that and then also go long on a Superman thing. But next week we'll talk about Superman. Um, if you want to hear my review of it, go to Beware of Spoilers. I did talk about it there at length about how much I love that movie. We'll be talking about it here next week about how Superman is exactly the right movie we need for this moment. And until our next episode, have a great rest of your